Okay, students, I hope you are all well and healthy and ready to learn new things. So, my name is Palak Patel. I am working in the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Technical Education Research Center, Navsari, in Civil Engineering Department. I am going to teach you the subject is Design of Reinforced Concrete Structures. In this subject, we are going to learn Module 5th, Earthquake Resistance Design of Building. In this chapter, we have so many theories like philosophy of earthquake resistor design, inertia force, strength and stiffness, strong column weak beam design, low resistance system, short column, guideline for efficient earthquake resistor design, and Indian standard course. Then after we have a seismic method of analysis, examples for the determine seismic force on the building, then the center of mass and center of stiffness, and we have an example to calculate center of mass and center of stiffness of a building. Then after ductile detailing of beam, column, shear wall. Okay. So in this lecture we will going to learn introduction portion like philosophy of earthquake design, inertia force, strength and stiffness. Okay. So shall we start? First thing is introduction. Introduction is we have to understand what is earthquake. Earthquake, we have a ground shaking at a given location during an earthquake can be minor, moderate, so severity of ground shaking. Severity of ground shaking means a shaking of ground we call it as earthquake. Simple definition. Okay. And for the given location we call it as earthquake, and this earthquake can be minor, moderate and strong. Minor, moderate and strong. So minor shaking occurs frequently, moderate shaking occasionally and strong shaking rarely. So I can say there is a 5 to 5.9 magnitude earthquake is called a moderate earthquake. This occurs annually about 800 earthquakes. About 800 earthquakes. So annually means in a years. In a years we have 800 earthquakes, which is 5 to 5.9 magnitude. Means a moderate earthquake. Moderate earthquake is 800 in the numbers in 1 year in the world. Then while the numbers is only 18, only 18 only 18 for the magnitude of 7 to 7.9. 7 to 7.9. So it's a strong earthquake. Strong earthquake is 7 to 7.9 in the world is only 18 numbers. Means we have to design and construct the building to resist that rare earthquake. That rare earthquake means 7 to 7.9 magnitude earthquake that may come only once in a 500 years. Only once in a 500 years or even once in a 2000 years at a chosen project site. So by these year numbers you can say we have a lifespan of a building is maximum 100 years. Okay. After 100 years we have to demolish the building and construct a new one or maintain a building. Okay. Or you can say there is a magnitude which is 18 is once in a 500 years, means we can build more 5 buildings in a one project sites, right? So I can say there is a building which is lifespan is 100 years. This 100 years building is rarely to occur rarely to occur 18 magnitude earthquake. So 18 magnitude 7 to 7.9 magnitude earthquake can be once in a once in a year for the building. So we have a philosophy of earthquake resistant design. This theory is asked winter 2090, winter 2080 as well as winter 2070. So philosophy of earthquake resistance design means we are going to design a building, but we have to follow some philosophy. We have to follow some philosophy of earthquake resistance design. Okay. So first for the major earthquake. So major earthquake building, we have all member irreparable damage. Irreparable damage means they cannot repair. They cannot repair when major earthquake occurs on the building. But two conditions, there should not collapse. So building should not collapse when major earthquake occurs on the building. Then after a moderate earthquake, on the moderate earthquake, main members will repairable damage. Means main members means column or beam can be repairable. Can be repairable. But other members will replaced. Other members will replaced means we have to replace other members like partition wall or other architectural features we can replace it, but building's main member which carry a horizontal and vertical load, that will be repairable damage. On a minor earthquake, the main members will not damage. The main members will not damage and others members repairable damage. So we have a three condition here: major, moderate and minor earthquake, and these all they have a different criteria for the earthquake resistance design. Okay, so you can see this figure. This is major earthquake, sorry, minor earthquake, moderate and strong shaking. On the major you can see only, minor you can see only a crack here, and moderate you can see there is a damage of beam, and here is a building is collapsing. Right? Then after philosophy of earthquake resistant design, we have a one condition is earthquake proof building, and second is earthquake resistant design. So first of all, earthquake proof building, this is too robust. Earthquake proof means a building cannot damage by a major earthquake. We call it as the earthquake proof, and this type of design is too robust and expensive, and as well as no damage during strong earthquake. And earthquake resistant design, we have a resist minor earthquake without damage, resist moderate earthquake without structural damage, and resist major earthquake without collapse. These two philosophy here. First is earthquake proof, second is earthquake resistance. On the earthquake proof, there is a strong earthquake. There is no damage during strong earthquake. But in the earthquake resistant design, minor earthquake without damage, moderate earthquake only structural damage, and resist major earthquake without collapse. Okay, these are the philosophy of earthquake resistance design. Now we have to understand inertia force. Inertia force, because on the earthquake times we face a inertia force on the building. So from Newton's first law of motion, even though the base of the building moves with the ground, even though the base of a building moves with the ground, the roof has a tendency to stay in the original position. But since the walls and columns connected to it, they drag the roof along with them. We have one figure here. Yeah. You can see here this figure. Is earthquake this direction? So by this earthquake, your foundation move, but your roof is try to stable their own position. So this in the opposite direction. And by this movement, they generate inertia force in the building. So we have to understand this situation when you facing a bus, you are standing and suddenly start, your feet move with the bus, but your upper body tends to stay back, making it fall backwards. So these are the situations. So same situation is happen on the earthquake on the building, and this tendency to continue to remain in the previous position is known as inertia. When the ground moves, even the building is drawn backward, the roof experiences a force is called inertia force. Right? So these are the definition of inertia force. You have to remember this equation. F is the inertia force, m is mass, and a is equal to acceleration. So by this equation, we can say where mass is more, inertia force is more, and acceleration is more, inertia force is more. Right? M is the mass, and experience and acceleration is a. So Newton's second law of motion, the Newton's second law of motion state the force acting on the building is equal to the mass of a building times the acceleration. Right? So these are the inertia force. Now we have 4 virtues of earthquake resistant structures. This question is asked in winter 2019, winter 2018 as well as winter 2017. So first 4 virtues, we have a lateral strength. The maximum lateral force that it can resist is such that the damage induced is does not result to collapse. Adequate stiffness, its lateral load resisting system is much that the earthquake induced deformation in it do not damage its contents under low to moderate shaking. Good ductility, its capacity to undergo large deformation under several earthquake shaking even after yielding is improved by a favorable design and detailing strategies. Right? Good structural configuration, its size, shape and structural system carrying loads are such that they ensure a direct and smooth flow of inertia force onto the building. These are the 4 points. You have to remember all these points. Then after we have a definition, strength and stiffness. Now we are going to understand strength and stiffness. So strength is a property of element to resist force. Strength means a definition, simple definition, the property of an element to resist force, and stiffness is the property of an element to resist displacement. Okay. So we have 2 definitions here. First is for the strength and second is for the stiffness. So for the earthquake resistance design, we have to follow stiffness is most important. On the basis of stiffness, the structure may be classified as a brittle structure and ductile structure. So brittle structure having greater stiffness prove to be less durable during earthquake, and ductile perform well in an earthquake. So masonry buildings are a brittle structure. On the other hand, RC frame buildings more ductile and can resist earthquake ground shaking safely. So brittle structure, it can be easily damaged during earthquake, but the ductile structure can resist earthquake forces. Now flexibility and stiffness. Flexibility and stiffness both are the 2 sides of the same coin. Means I can say if stiffness is something is stiffness isn't flexible and vice versa. Okay. Stiffness means for definition you can say resist a displacement. Okay. If something is resist a displacement means building is not more flexible. If we provide more stiffness to the building will not become a flexible. So we have one example here. A taller building tends to move flexible than shorter buildings. Right? Consider a thin metal rod. It is very short, it's difficult to bend in your hand. But if rod is somewhat longer, and the same diameter, it becomes much easier to bend, and building behaves similarly. So we can say this short building is stiff while the taller building is flexible, right? Now these are the two definitions of strength and stiffness and flexibility. But by these two conditions we have to design a capacity design concept. Okay. Now let us take a two bars of same length and same cross section area. Same length and same cross section area. One is made of ductile material and other of a brittle material. What we do? We take a two bars of same length and same cross section, but material are different. One material is brittle and second material is ductile. Now put this bar until they break. You can see this graph. Okay, these are the brittle material graph and these are the ductile material graph. Okay, so for the ductile bar, elongated by a large amount before it break. So ductile bar can be elongated. Elongated means can be extended before break. But brittle bar can break suddenly on the reaching the maximum strength at the relative small elongation. Right? So these are the difference between ductile and brittle material. So I can say brittle material can be damaged easily. So ductile material cannot be damaged easily. Right? Now we have to understand this brittle and ductile material. Now let us make a chain with a link made of brittle and ductile material. So you can say here is a ductile link and all the other are brittle link. Right? By this link we are make one chain here. Each of this link will feel just like a bars. Okay? These link are made from the bars. Okay? Now hold the last link at either end on a chain and apply to force F. So look at here. Chain we apply the force F. So same force is being transferred to all the links, means this link face F, this link is F, this link face F force, this link face the same force, all the link face the same force, right? So the chain will break when the weakest link is break. Means in this chain, any one link which is weaker one, if it's break, the chain will break. Right? These are the conditions. Now what we happened, we made a brick from the ductile and as well as brittle. And imagine if the ductile link is a weak one, if a ductile link is a weak one, then the chain will show larger final elongation. And if the brittle link is a weak one, then the chain will fail suddenly and show small final elongation. Okay. Now we are going to understand strong column, weak beam design. Strong column, weak beam design. This strong column, weak beam design, this question asked in summer 2019, summer 2018 and summer 2017. So for the building to remain the safe during earthquake shaking, columns, let's change the paint color, column which receive a form from the beam should be stronger than beams and foundation should be stronger than column. So these are the conditions. Means column should be stronger than beam and foundation should be stronger than column for the resist earthquake force. Right? And connection between the beam and column and foundation should be strong enough to transfer the inertia force safely to the ground. And if the columns are made weaker, then they suffer several local damage, especially at the joint of lower story. And this damage can lead to collapse of building, although the columns at upper story are undamaged. So we can figure here. If the beam is weaker, if the beam is weaker, the column are stronger, then the damage will first occur in the beam, which is ductile enough to cause a progressive damage. And that will larger deformation in the building before collapse. Right? If beam weaker, then we can see larger deformation in the beam before collapse. So we have some time for the running, right? Now we can understand this thing by a figure. You can see here is a strong column and weak beam. At a time, imagine this beam will be failed. What happened? Only this floor will be fall down and the other remaining part will be stable. But if column weak column, then what happened? If this column break, whole building will collapse. Whole building will be collapse. So we are going to strong column weak beam design. The failure of column can affect the stability of the whole building, but the failure of a beam causes the localized effect. Failure of beam causes localized effect. In the weak column structure, plastic deformation is concerned in a particular story and the relatively large ductility factor is required. In the both shear and flexural failure of column, degradation are greater than those in the yielding of beams. Right? So these are the strong column, weak beam designed for the resist earthquake force. Now we have some lateral load resisting systems. Lateral load resisting systems. Now students, here is a lateral load resisting system. Lateral load resisting system means we have to provide some special system to resist a lateral load, like earthquake, wind load. Okay. So earthquake causes shaking the ground in all three directions, along two horizontal direction and vertical direction. Okay. So all the structure are primarily designed to carry vertical load. Vertical load. But there are main force system to resist lateral loads. We have a force system like load bearing wall system, moment resisting frame system, dual system means frame and shear wall plus bracing, and tube system. Now we are going to understand all these four one by. First is a load bearing wall system. In a load bearing wall system, a wall are transfer a load from beam to beam. Right? Suitable for the low rise building, and this system is very weak in resisting lateral loads and it is seldom recommended for a multi-story buildings. So these systems are not used for the resisting lateral loads. This resist only a vertical load, but this type of system is not used in a multi-story building. Then after RC frame system. RC frame means a column and beam. The beam and column are built monolithically forming a framework. It's called RC frame system. Okay. This system comprising RC column and as well as RC frame. So this is called as RC frame. Okay. The ability of multi-story building to resist lateral forces depend on the rigidity of the joint between the beam and the column. When these joints are fully rigid, the structure as a whole is capable to resisting a lateral loads. Such a type of frame is called a moment resisting frame, and it is fundamental structural system for a multi-story buildings. Right? So this is called a RC frame system, and this RC frame system is rigid, so it can resist a lateral load as well as vertical load. Now we have a RC frame system, we have some components which are used for the resist lateral load as well as increase the lateral load resisting system, like load bearing shear wall with columns, infill shear wall, bracing and diaphragm. First of all, we have to understand what is shear wall. Load bearing shear wall are also useful in preventing the failure of a non-structural component by reducing drift. You can see here is a shear wall. Okay, RC shear wall means is a reinforcement concrete, as you can see in the plan here, right? So they may be RCC steel, composite or masonry. Okay, and this shear wall commonly used in a multi-story building. Shear wall is a vertical in plan like RC wall. This wall generally start at the foundation level and continue throughout the building height. Okay, their thickness can be as low as 150 mm or high as 400 mm in a high-rise building. So thickness in between 150 mm or 400 mm, right, is called a load-bearing shear wall. Then after braced frame, in a braced frame, the same manner as a shear wall, but they may offer lower resistance depending on the design of construction. Bracing generally take a form of steel rod section, circular bar section or a tube. You can see here is a column, here is a beam and here is a bracing. Right? Here is a bracings. So this bracing is used to control a lateral load. Vibration may cause the bracing to elongate or compress. And ductility is very important in designing the bracings, right? Then after diaphragm means are a horizontal resisting element, generally floor or roof, means we can call floor or roof is called a diaphragm, which transfer the lateral forces between the vertical resisting element, shear walls or frame, right? These are the floor or roof is called diaphragm. Connection between the wall and the slab is rigid, is become a diaphragm. Then after tube system, for the more than 40 story, the effect of lateral force become very intense. In such a case, tube system are more economical than the moment resisting frame. So tube system is classified frame tube, truss tube, tube in tube and bundle tube. So these are changes in configuration. So in the frame tube system, closely spaced column tied at each floor level by deep spreadal beams, there creating an effect of a hollow tube performed by opening for a window. What happened? The outer side of the building, columns are connected by a beam, and this building create as a hollow tube. This building behave as a hollow tube because you can see there is a main column is all and the periphery of the building, there is no column in between, right? So this is called frame tube system. Then after truss tube system, in the truss tube system, the diagonal member along with the girders and column from a truss system, this impart a great deal of stiffness of the building. You can see here is all the column outer side, but you can see here these are the diagonal member which create a truss system, right? You just have to remember the method names, you don't have to remember the condition of it. Okay, just remember what is tube in tube, what is a truss tube, what is frame tube. So tube in tube system consists of an exterior tube that resists bending moment due to lateral force, and the interior slender tube which resists the shear produced by a lateral load. So you can see here is a frame system, all the columns are at the periphery, and one internal tube which using for the shear force, right? It's a tube in tube system, means one tube in between second tube. Then after bundle, a bundle tube system is made up of a numbers of tubes separated by shear walls. The B rise various height and each tube is designed independently. Means you can see it's a bundle tube. So many columns, and this construction method system is called as bundle tube system. Right? Now we are going to understand short column effect. Short column effect is asked in summer 2018. These are the most important. Okay. You can see here is a tall column and as well as short column. Okay. During the past earthquake, RC frame building that have a column of a different height within one story suffered more damage in the shorter column as compared to taller column in the same story. So in the same floor, you can see here is a long column and here is a short column. The displacement will be high in a short column. Okay, and this displacement attract larger horizontal force. Okay, and this larger horizontal force can damage the building. So poor behavior of short column is due to in fact that in earthquake a tall column and a short column of a same cross section move horizontally by same amount delta, same amount. These both displacement are same. Displacement are same. Okay, but a short column is stiffer as compared to tall column and attract larger earthquake forces. Right? So stiffness of column means a larger is a stiffness, larger is the force required to deform. If short column is not adequate design for a such a larger force, it can suffer significant damage during an earthquake. This behavior is called short column effect. Okay, so during short column earthquake shaking, all the column move horizontally by the same amount along with a floor slab at a particular level. This is called rigid floor diaphragm action. Okay, so all column displacement are the same, if long or small it doesn't matter, but a short column is damaged more because it attract larger force, because displacement is less, that why larger force will be there. Then after short column effect, the short column effect also occurs in the column that support mechanized fall. You can see. Consider a wall of a partial height built in a fit window over the remaining height. The adjacent column behave as a short column due to presence of these walls. In many cases, other columns in the same story are of regular height as there is no wall in adjoining them. So you can see here is a short column, same thing, here is a tall column, here is a short column. So this short column will be damaged more. Now we have a guidelines for efficient earthquake resistant structural design. So basic principles and guidelines are achieving efficient earthquake resistant design are as follow. So we have just point out something. So just read it out. The design of building should be based on the seismic code IS 1893 part 1, IS 13920. So integral action of soil, foundation, superstructure system. The different element of the whole substructure and superstructure system should be tied together so that in they come work as a single unit. The building should be light in weight and avoid unnecessary masses. The structure should not have a larger height width ratio. These are the guidelines for the efficient earthquake resistant structural design. The load bearing elements should be uniformly distributed. This check the torsion in the building. So load bearing elements should be uniformly distributed. So no torsion will be generated in the building. The column and walls should be continuous and without offset from the roof of a foundation. The structure should have a low center of mass relative to the ground. The structure should not be larger in length nor they have a larger plan area. The beam should be free of offset. And the columns and beams should be coaxial. Beam and columns should be equal width. Avoid ground floor soft story. The structure should be designed as per column wick beam design. The infill construction of RCC building should be duly accounted for a structural analysis. So these are the guidelines for the efficient earthquake resistant structural design. And this question asked in summer 2018 as well as summer 2017. Right? Just remember these points. Okay. Oh, there is more. Shear wall should be employed for the increasing stiffness and uniformly distributed in both principal direction. There should be greater emphasis on the quality of construction. The structure should have balance, lateral resistance. The structure should have uniform floor height. The structure should have uniform floor height. There should be uniform distribution of mass, stiffness and strain, avoiding formation of soft story. The structure should be ductile as far as possible. Right? Now Indian Seismic Codes. There is a Bureau of Indian Standard BSI following seismic code like 1893 part 1 2002. This name is Indian Standard Criteria for the Earthquake Resistant Design of Structures. You just have to remember the name. Okay, IS 4326 1993 Indian Standard Code of Practice for Earthquake Resistant Design and Construction of Building. Then after IS 13827 1993 Indian Standard Guidelines for Improving Earthquake Resistance of Earthen Buildings. These are the Indian Standard Codes. 13828 1993 Indian Standard Guidelines for Improving Earthquake Resistance of Low Strain Masonry Buildings. 13935 1993 Indian Standard Code of Practice for Ductile Detailing of Reinforced Concrete Structure subjected to seismic force. IS 13935 1993 Indian Standard Guidelines for the repair and seismic strengthening of the buildings. Okay, these are the Indian Standard Codes. Now I give some practice questions for you. So this question is asked in exams like explain philosophy of earthquake resistant design. Give a 4 virtues of good earthquake resistant design. So in this example, in this question, we have a 2 question. First is a philosophy of earthquake resistant design, and second one, 4 virtues of good earthquake resistant design. And this question is asked in winter 2090, winter 2080, as well as winter 2017. Second, explain the strong column weak beam design concept. This question asked in summer 2090, 2080 and 2070 as well. And the last one is explain short column effect. This question asked in summer 2018. So this video is completed. Video lecture is finished. So in the next lecture, we will discuss seismic force and calculate seismic force on a building. Right? The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried.